one of the things that I love about our church, our denomination, the United Church of Christ, is that we attempt to do our best to lift up the voices of the marginalized, even when we struggle to do that, even when we make mistakes in doing it. I think it is important that we lift up those who are marginalized in the midst of the difficult task of doing that. For we believe in a still-speaking God whose voice is found in those who hurt, those who struggle, and those who are broken. God's love finds its ways into those voices. And when our ears hear the cry of the brokenhearted, the vulnerable, and the downtrodden, we are hearing the depth of God's own voice. Sometimes those voices are hard to listen to. When I was growing up, I learned that Jacob, the descendant of Abraham and Sarah, had 12 sons. And these sons became the 12 tribes of Israel. We sang songs about them. We are climbing Jacob's ladder. And one of the most famous brothers, Joseph, has his story told very often about his beautiful multicolored coat, which his brothers coveted, and they threw him in a pit, pretended that he was killed accidentally, and then they sold him into slavery. And Joseph grew to become a wise mentor to the Pharaoh in Egypt, and ended up saving his brothers later on in life. Yet in all the years of growing up, I didn't hear the story of Jacob's only daughter, Dinah. In fact, I didn't even know her name, or that she existed. No one told me her story or helped me to understand why she matters. I could say it was the result of a biblical narrative tradition that tends to suppress the voices of women in the Bible, or that it was the tragic result of the lectionary that we use, which has too many scriptures to choose from and has chosen to leave Dinah's story on the cutting room floor. Or it could be the uncomfortability of my teachers who avoided telling me the story of a woman who was sexually assaulted, even though it was in the Bible. Sexual assault, though, is a part of our lives. It's a part of the world in which we live in, unfortunately, tragically. Sexual assault is a type of sexual violence. It is a term that applies to a broad range of forced and unwanted sexual activity. It includes attempted rape, unwanted fondling or sexual touching, and rape, which is a violation of the victim's body against their will. Sexual assault can be forcing someone into non-consensual sexual acts by way of manipulation, physical or emotional coercion, or psychological force, including threats or other means of intimidation. Yet whatever form sexual assault takes, it's important for victims and survivors to realize that it's not their fault. It is not your fault. Sexual assault is far too common a problem. In our country today, RAINN, an organization called the Rape, Abuse, and Incest National Network, recently reported that someone in the U.S. is sexually assaulted every 98 seconds. But sexual assault shouldn't be regarded as ordinary or inevitable. By understanding and addressing the problem, we can do something about it. According to RAINN, R-A-I-N-N, rates of sexual violence in the U.S. have dropped more than half since 1993. That is encouraging. But our society still has a lot of work to do before we can list sexual autonomy as one of our national values. Our denomination, the United Church of Christ, tries very diligently to empower our youth to be agents of their own body, to have agency in this world in healthy and holistic ways. One of those programs is called OWL, which stands for Our Whole Lives, in which we do comprehensive sexual education training, Currently, our Unitarian Universalist brothers and sisters teach these classes, and we're working in this church right now to get that training set up so that we can offer that same training here for our young people, and even hopefully for adults as well. One way that we can work to combat sexual violence towards women is to lift up the stories out of the darkness and bring them into light. To be truth tellers, not to run away from the dark and scary things, and to stand up to it and say, there is yet more light and truth. We need to tell and hear human stories, not just the statistics. Dinah was lost to me because no one told me her story. And I am attempting this Sunday to do her justice by making sure that her story is not lost to you. That would be a double tragedy. To let her become a victim a second time by blotting her story out from our religious tradition. Yet in the most unlikely of places, I heard her story for the very first time at a summer camp for children. Brian Sergio, a UCC musician who has performed at many churches and conferences across the United Church of Christ, and whose musical selections are present in our Sing, Prayer, and Praise songbook in our pews. He composed a song about Dinah, which he sings to elementary-aged children.
Jacob had one daughter named Dinah. It's good to remember her name. God loves to see women respected. God loves men and women the same. I wish we knew more about Bible time daughters, but I'm glad God's changing this world. I'm glad nowadays moms and dads give God praise when they're blessed with the gift of a girl. Jacob had one daughter named Dinah. It's good to remember her name. God loves to see women respected. God loves men and women the same. I wish we knew more about Bible time daughters, but I'm glad God's changing this world. I'm glad nowadays moms and dads give God praise when they're blessed with the gift of a girl. Yes, I'm glad nowadays moms and dads give God praise. Hooray! When they're blessed with the gift of a girl.
Dinah's story has been overshadowed by her brothers. Even the scripture which we hear today gives the action and the agency to the men in the story. The 12 brothers, Jacob, Shechem, and Hamor, have the story told from their perspectives. They are the ones who are mad. Jacob is the one who has been wronged. Shechem is the one who is in love. The brothers are the ones who avenge the forbidden love. So we don't even know what the real story is here because we cannot hear from the one whom the story is about, from whom it happened to, from the perspective of Dinah. Her voice has been silenced. Was this a case? Is this a story of sexual assault or forbidden love? What we do know is that it is a story that follows an age-old pattern of violence towards women. For after the 12 brothers learn what has happened to their sister Dinah, they plot to hurt those who hurt her. They engage in a redemptive violence, one that seeks to do as much damage as the damage perceived. They tricked the people of Hamor and Shechem by asking them to get circumcised, and then, when the men of the city are their most vulnerable, the brothers descend into the city and commit mass murder. Jacob, their father, upon learning what his children have done, bemoans this act of violence, this redemptive violence, and says, "What have you done?" Our world sometimes focuses so heavily on redemptive violence. You hurt me, so I will hurt you. And the cycle of violence continues and continues and continues, and we pass it on from one to another and to our children, to our children's children. Unfortunately, the cycle of violence has not ended. We still face extraordinary pain of violence towards women in today's world. Our beautiful daughter gets a lot of attention, as you know. She's very talkative, and people notice her. And about once every week or every 2 weeks, we'll have a stranger come up to us when we're shopping or walking in the park, and someone will say, "Oh, wow, what a beautiful daughter. You're going to need to buy a gun." And Ashley and I have really struggled with that comment. I even talked with my mom about it. I said, "Mom, why do people say we need to buy a gun when they think we have such a beautiful daughter?" And she says, "Well, they're just trying to offer it as a compliment. You know, because she's so beautiful, you're going to have to chase away all the boys and protect her from them." I said, "Yeah, that's what I don't get. You see, that perpetuates, that kind of positive comment perpetuates this cycle of violence that we assume that all men are out there to do harm and hurt people, and that all women need the men in their lives to stand up and protect them by hurting the other people." I mean, this comment comes directly from this story, how the 12 brothers feel so angry, they go out and they do harm to the people who hurt their sister. Why would I, as a beloved of God, as a minister of the gospel of Christ, want to get a gun so that I can protect my daughter? Why would I not want to teach her the value of her own body, to teach her how to say no, and to teach her what consent is, and to know when she's in a situation that isn't good for her, that she has the agency and the power to step out of that situation. And when she gets caught up in situations that are beyond her control, I will teach her how to have agency in that, to seek out resources. Because eventually there's going to come a time where I can't be there for her, to protect her from the world that is often violent and hurtful. And statistically, I know that my descendants will have a history of sexual assault or violence as part of their story. The one thing that I don't want to lose sight of is that we can heal from those deep, painful wounds. That we can offer a rebuttal to those comments that seek to be joking or complimentary and say, "Thank you so much for recognizing how beautiful my daughter is. I feel so blessed. And I am proud that she'll become a woman who has agency in this world." In fact, all of us at one time or another have had something said to us that hurt us deeply. Maybe about the kind of person we were, the kind of family we belonged to. Maybe we said something inappropriate or something we're not very proud of, and someone called us out on it. Sometimes we get told things that are hard and difficult to hear. And I think it's a part of changing our culture if we are able to push back against that, and not in a redemptive way, but a restorative way. How do we restore the love and justice and mercy of God in this world, instead of seeking to do more violence and more harm? How can we reach out to one another and grab each other's hands and say, "You have been hurt, and I am so sorry. But together we're going to walk through this, and we're going to heal. I don't know the path forward, but I trust in God. And I trust that God will guide us forward. And I trust that God will heal us in ways profound and unexpected. We change this world by being in relationship with one another. Rather than telling me how beautiful my daughter is and what I should do to protect her, I would rather that you would talk with her. I would rather that you see her as a human being, ask her how she is doing, be curious about who she is and what she likes. Please don't assume to know what she or her parents need to know. As we said at Mad Camp, as one of my campers said at Mad Camp this week, don't anticipate. I think I need to tell you this, I need to give you this advice. Participate. Be in the relationship. Ask questions. Be curious. Be in a relationship with another human being. For that is a way that we can avoid these comments and these ways of being hurtful to one another unintentionally. Ask, how are you? What is new in your life? And try to move us out of some of those painful conversations. Be in relationship with one another. Because what this world needs is more relationships. We need to have deeper, better listening abilities to hear the stories of each other. We have a long way to go to help overcome some of the history of violence and sexual assault for women in this world. And there are people in this world who are doing their best to make that happen. In the world, there are 130 million school-aged girls who do not go to school. 130 million. That's about half the size of the population of the United States of America. Malala Yousafzai is a girl who is trying to change that. She says that I tell my story not because it is unique, but because it is not unique. It is the story of many girls. Malala was born in 1997 and is a Pakistani activist for female education and is the youngest ever Nobel Prize laureate. She is known for her human rights advocacy, especially in educating young women in her native home valley in northwest Pakistan, where the local Taliban have at times banned girls from attending school. Her advocacy has since grown into an international movement. Her family moved to Pakistan to run a chain of schools in the region. In 2009, when she was 11 years old, she wrote a blog under a pseudonym about her life in the Taliban-occupied area of Swat. The following summer, a journalist for the New York Times documented her life in Pakistan as the Pakistani military intervened in the region and overthrew the Taliban. She rose in prominence, giving interviews and went on television, and she was nominated for the Children's Peace Prize by activist Desmond Tutu for her work. People weren't happy about that. And on the afternoon of October 9th, 2012, Malala was injured after a Taliban gunman attempted to murder her, to silence her, to end her story. She remained unconscious in critical condition, but later her condition improved, and she was blessed enough to go and meet the Queen of England, Queen Elizabeth, at a hospital in Birmingham, UK. The murder attempt sparked a national and international outpouring of support for Malala. And in 2013, one journalist said that she was perhaps the most famous teenager in the world. Weeks after her murder attempt, however, a group of 50 leading Muslim clerics in Pakistan issued a fatwa against those who tried to kill her. Our work isn't done. We still have places where we seek redemptive violence instead of restorative justice. Malala is one who is trying to help us change the way in which we see women around the world and how we treat women. She's trying to stop the cycle of violence done to girls and women. One way that I think that we as Christians can help change the story change the future and seek to dismantle the cycle of violence and seek more restorative justice is to hear and give agency to the women who are often victimized twice by not having their story told. One of the most life-changing books I've read was The Red Tent by Dinah, and it is the story of Dinah, as told from her perspective, and it's a part of the Jewish tradition called Midrash, in which Jewish rabbis and religious leaders fill in the blanks between the words, between the passages, and give life to a story that is otherwise just a footnote. In the prologue, Anita Diamond writes as Dinah in the Red Tent. And I'll end with that. We have been lost to each other for so long. My name means nothing to you. My memory is dust. This is not your fault or mine. The chain connecting mother to daughter was broken, and the word passed to the keeping of men who had no way of knowing. That is why I became a footnote. My story, a brief detour between the well-known history of my father Jacob and the celebrated chronicle of Joseph, my brother. On those rare occasions when I was remembered, it was as a victim. Near the beginning of your holy book, there is a passage that seems to say I was raped, and continues with the bloody tale of how my honor was avenged. It's a wonder that any mother ever called a daughter Dinah again, but some did. Maybe you guessed that there was more to me than the voiceless cipher in the text. Maybe you heard it in the music of my name, the first vowel high and clear, as when a mother calls to her child at dusk. The second sounds soft for whispering secrets on pillows. Dinah. No one recalled my skill as a midwife, or the songs I sang, or the bread I baked for my insatiable brothers. Nothing remained except a few mangled details about those weeks in Section. There was far more to tell. Had I been asked to speak of it, I would have begun with the story of the generations that raised me, which is the only place to begin. If you want to understand any woman, you must first ask about her mother and then listen carefully. Stories about food show a strong connection. Wistful silences demonstrate unfinished business. The more a daughter knows the detail of her mother's life without flinching or whining, the stronger the daughter. Of course, there is more complicated history for me because I had 4 mothers, each of them scolding, teaching, and cherishing something different about me, giving me different gifts, cursing me with different fears. Leah gave me birth and her splendid arrogance. Rachel showed me where to place the midwife's bricks and how to fix my hair. Zilpah made me think. Bilhah listened. No 2 of my mothers seasoned her stew the same way. No 2 of them spoke to my father in the same tone of voice, nor he to them. And you should know that my mothers were sisters as well, Laban's daughters by different wives. Though my grandfather never acknowledged Zilpah and Bilhah, that would have cost him 2 more dowries, and he was a stingy pig. In the ruddy shade of the red tent, the menstrual tent, they ran their fingers through my curls, repeating the escapades of their youth, the sagas of their childbirth. The stories were like offerings of hope and strength poured out before the Queen of Heaven. Only these gifts were not for any god or goddess, but for me. I can still feel how my mothers loved me. I have cherished their love always. It sustained me. It kept me alive. Even after I left them, and even now, so long after their deaths, I am comforted by their memory. I carried my mother's tales into the next generation, but the stories of my life were forbidden to me, and that silence nearly killed the heart in me. I did not die, but lived long enough for other stories to fill up my days and nights. I watched babies open their eyes upon a new world. I found a cause for laughter and gratitude. I was loved. And now you come to me, women and men, with hands and feet as soft as a queen's, with more cooking pots than you need, so safe in childbed and so free with your tongues. You come hungry for the story that was lost. You crave the words to fill that great silence that swallowed me. And my mothers, my grandmothers before me. I wish I had more to tell of my grandmothers. It is terrible how much has been forgotten, which is why, I suppose, remembering seems a holy thing. I am so grateful that you have come, and I will pour out everything inside me, so that you may leave this table satisfied and fortified. Blessings on your eyes, blessings on your children, blessings on the ground beneath you. My heart is a ladle of sweet water, brimming over. Salam.